The Rays have added an outfielder, but not the name you were expecting.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Rays podcast. Locked On Rays is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we are Kevin and Ulises.
And we are lifelong Rays fans who have been podcasting about the Tampa Bay Rays since 2019.
Later on today's show, the Rays have a new assistant hitting coach who may be able to make a bit of a difference. In a few minutes, we'll discuss why the Rays had one of the worst outfield offenses last season. But to start, the Rays have beefed up their outfield competition somewhat.
And we're going to talk about all of that thanks to Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Yes, the offseason is here. The hot stove is burning, and boy, is it burning as ever because the Rays have signed an outfielder, Kevin, a name that you might not even know how to pronounce, but you look it up on Baseball Reference, and it says Ryan Vilade has been signed by the Rays, who, by the way, doesn't move the needle, but he does bring some interesting minor league numbers that hopefully injects a little bit of competition to the outfield.
Yeah, so Valade is a guy who I think both of us can be honest and transparent, had never heard of before. Not to say he can't become something one day, but it is one of those throw crap to the wall and hope it sticks. I mean, it is an encouraging sign that he put up very solid and impressive numbers in AAA this past season. But again, he's 27 years old playing AAA ball. So I would expect him to have some modicum of success at that level. But just based on his offensive profile, we see some pop, we see some extra base hits, we see batting average, we see a good strikeout rate. We see some stolen bases in there. So at the very least, maybe this puts some of the current outfielders on notice of there's a new guy in town and I need to try to be the best I can be. And, you know, there have been occasions where guys that you've never heard of that get picked up for cash considerations wind up being something. More often than not, that doesn't happen. But clearly, you know, there's something about his game and his profile that the Rays like, and they went out and did the maneuver of bringing him into the organization. So really, time will tell into spring training and maybe into the regular season on, you know, how much, if any, action he'll get with the big league club. You know, if I had to guess, if I'm being as honest as possible, I think it's, you know, cup of coffee here, like Austin Shinton, like Kevin Padlo. But you never know with some of these guys.
You never know. I think right now they saw an opportunity for cash considerations on a guy that, by the way, in AAA has slashed 275, 356, 421. That's a 776 OPS. So solid numbers all around. We always say that if you have solid numbers in AAA, that doesn't really give you a lot of confidence because you're going to see a dent in that production when you go to MLB. So if you're already putting numbers like a 770 OPS in the minors in AAA, then you're probably going to see a dent of 30, 50 points in your OPS. So then that already starts to hang around the 700 line, 710 line, which, you know, right now I think we would all be okay with, but that's not really what would help the outfield. But what it does do, Kevin, is bring fresh, new blood, a guy that wants it. He's 27. This could be his last big opportunity. He's going to be coming in hot in spring training. Hopefully that does kind of create some competition there in the outfield, and that can be good for the team. But I'm with you. It's not the signing that we were hoping for, or at least the trade we were looking for, because obviously they acquired him by trade from the Reds. But it does something, as in it keeps the ball moving in the offseason. We have something to talk about, to chew on for a little bit. And it makes you hope that if this is the first thing they do, I like that because it means that they're aware of it, of what the
Right.
outfield is.
They're being somewhat aggressive, and there's still a lot of offseason to go. So don't, take out the idea that, maybe they make a free agent signing here or there. It's not going to be who you want it to be necessarily. It's not going to be Kyle Tucker or Trent Grisham or Cody Bellinger, but there is also the aspect of trades as well. If anything, like, Josh Lowe doesn't have to worry about Ryan Vilade, but maybe Cameron Meisner does. Maybe Chris Morel does. And at the very least, maybe that, forces some of these guys to level up their game to some extent. But then again, he could just be a Tristan Gray type or Ruben Cardenas type. If I had a dollar for every time that we got a guy like this that we ooh and ah at their recent numbers or something in their profile in the minor leagues that winds up doing next to nothing in the major leagues, I might have 20 or $30 at this point in time. But again, give him a shot, give him a chance, see what he can do. Maybe there is something that, the Rays saw in terms of his approach that if you untap this or do more of this, do less of that, you can establish yourself as somebody. And there's many guys that are late bloomers that wind up having a solid major league career. Your buddy Jose Bautista, he's an example. Jake Cronenworth, he's an example. So all we can do is wait and see if Ryan Vilade will be something.
And you won't have to wait so long, because we're also going to be talking about the team's offensive struggles from the outfield. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can always be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, it's always a mess. And that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. In fact, I was in Fort Lauderdale a couple weeks back. I wanted to see a soccer game. Guess what I did? I used Game Time, because you'll always get 100% authentic tickets. So today, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you so much for listening to Locked On Rays, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Yeah, I know Kevin's dogs are very excited about Ryan Vilade.
Yes, they went out and got a Ryan Vilade jersey and jersey. They're actually viewing highlights of him now on repeat, and they're just barking up a storm with the enthusiasm here.
They can't believe it. They're like, for only cash considerations, we got Ryan Vilade. That's crazy.
We didn't have to give up Junior Caminero to get Ryan Vilade.
They're excited.
Miracle.
Yes. I know, they're excited. But guess what? We should also be excited that there are new names popping up in the outfield, because the outfield offense must be addressed in 2026, Kev. The Tampa Bay Rays were ranked 26th in OPS in the outfield, 27th in RBIs, and dead last in home runs with 29.
Yeah, so it goes to show you why the Rays made an initial move, at least, in Ryan Vilade, hoping that, maybe he can work out or supplement somebody else. But it's one of the many questions or topics that I presume we will get to throughout the course of the offseason. One is the starting pitching depth. Another is the catching position. Also on the list, among other things, is the outfield offense, or the lack of pop from the offense in general. Because if we are going to give them a semblance of credit, the outfield crew, they did hit for average. They had the 6th highest batting average in the majors this past season at 255 from outfielders as a whole, and they ran well, which that's understandable with Jake Mangum and Chandler Simpson. But kind of like our buddy Evan Klosky alluded to, is you have Jake Mangum, you have Chandler Simpson, who in their own right are major league players and bring a different dynamic to the game, but who is going to be the power force for that 3rd, 4th, 5th outfield spot? Because it's not going to be Jake Mangum. It's not going to be Chandler Simpson. And that's where you go back to Chris Morel needs to live up to his potential. And probably most importantly, Josh Lowe needs to live up to his potential. I mean, a lot of this can be solved by one or more of those guys carrying their weight and being what we expected them to do, because we're not going to expect Chandler Simpson to knock out 15 home runs. We're probably not going to expect Jake Mangum to knock out 15 home runs, but Josh Lowe and Chris Morel, they should be able to do that and more so, and be able to stay healthy and not go through extended slumps and not have a crazy amount of strikeouts to their name. So that's really going to be the question for the Rays is, okay, you went out and got Ryan Vilade, which is great. It is what it is. But ultimately, if we're looking at it 30,000 foot view, is Ryan Vilade single-handedly alone going to change the complexion of the outfield offense and their rankings from 2025 to 2026?
I'll answer that with a stat I'm seeing: 8 seasons in the minor, 71 home runs. So no, the answer is no.
And we're going back to the Trop and not Steinbrenner Field. So
exactly. So I will say though that the lack of pop, and I think you're very astute in saying this, because there's this feeling I'm getting from Rays fans that it's the problem for our lack of power is Mangum and Simpson. And I think that's misguided. I feel like I want Simpson to be Chandler Simpson. I want Jake Mangum to be Jake Mangum. The fact that they are not power hitters, that does not upset me in the least. I like what they do. I hope they can get better, but their tools are unique in 2025, 2026, and I want to exploit those unique set of skills. Now, I think the onus of the power, of the lack of power, actually, is, like you said, is on Christopher Morel and Josh Lowe. That's who really should be, the brunt of this blame should be laid up on those two guys. Hey, you're the ones that have the power. Christopher Morel showed 25 home run power in Chicago. Where's that in Tampa? Because it wasn't there. And Josh Lowe, dude, you've been hurt and lack of producing very little for the last 2 years. Where is that 2023 type of Josh Lowe? Or by that, measure, where's the Josh Lowe from the minors too, who was killing it with the Rays too? So the onus of the lack of power, I think, sometimes gets directed towards Chandler Simpson and Jake Mangum just because of who they are as baseball players. But I think that's wrong. Yeah. The blame is honestly on Morel and Josh Lowe.
Well, talk about a late bloomer. That would be one Jake Mangum, and he was very impressive in his rookie season, as was Chandler Simpson. Now, if we want to go out and make an argument that they're too alike in their skill sets, okay, I'm fine with that. And if you want to trade one of them, go for it. But you better be sure that whoever fills out the rest of that outfield can be as valuable or more valuable than Jake Mangum or Chandler Simpson, which, by the way, if the Rays were to trade one of those two guys, it would 99.99% be Jake Mangum. I don't know how you trade Chandler Simpson based on what he showed there. And then the other thing too, I mean, yes, the Rays had injuries in the outfield, Johnny DeLuca and Richie Palacios, but are we really going to expect a ton of power from either of those guys? I mean, they might surprise us in some shape or form and give you 10 to 12, but you especially
together.
But it's really on.
But no, it's like
Josh
you said,
Lowe and Chris Morel.
It's those two guys, because Palacios and DeLuca are not those types of players either.
Yeah.
And maybe that's an issue that the Rays are now finding themselves in, is that maybe we targeted these players that kind of have the same dynamic skill set, but they don't have much pop, and we saw it in the numbers. And you were hoping that maybe Josh and Christopher were able to kind of buoy the offensive power numbers in the outfield, but it was not to be, at least not in 2025.
No, it wasn't. And again, just to reiterate, we are not getting Kyle Tucker. We are not getting Cody Mellinger. We are not getting Trent Grisham. Maybe we go out and make a trade or two, but hey, still long off season. I have hope that the Rays will be able to shore it up.
If Kevin is wrong and the Rays do sign Kyle Tucker, Kevin Weiss will be having a full beard on this show, just like I have shaved mine, just the opposite.
Yeah, to add to that, you will have to keep your beard shaved, and I will grow out a beard.
There you go.
If the Rays sign Kyle Tucker. So there we go. Yeah. All right, moving on, and to end the program, perhaps the Rays' new assistant hitting coach can inject some life and enthusiasm, not just in the outfield, but the offense as a whole.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action, because if you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, guess what? Green Skittles go your way. You win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right.
Thank you for listening to the Locked On Rays podcast and making us your very first listen every day. We appreciate it. We are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Ozzie Timmons should be a great fit as the Rays' new assistant hitting coach. Maybe the worst kept secret out there since the Rays decided and opted to let go of Brady North as the assistant hitting coach. Ozzie Timmons will fill that void working under Chad Mottola, who I think I'm correct in saying this. He is now the longest tenured hitting coach in the bigs. Chad Mottola, who would have had that on their bingo card. But Ozzie Timmons, and who knows, maybe depending on how it all shakes out, maybe he'll be the head honcho hitting coach down the line. I guess it all depends on what the Rays offensive numbers are in 2026 and beyond. But I think Ozzie Timmons in general, wherever you place him, whatever his role with the organization is, be it assistant hitting coach, first base coach, outfield coordinator, bench coach, whatever role you put him in, I think he's the type of guy that can thrive based on his experience, his long tenure of experience with the Tampa Bay Rays, in the fact that, you know, we've seen and heard time and time again how great of a rapport and relationship that he has with the players on the field. He's kind of like a players first coach that gives solid advice, but also keeps them energized from game 1 to game 62. And, you know, there's the connection, the fact that he is a native of Tampa. He in total has played 16 years of professional baseball, a couple years in the bigs, and then he played overseas as well. So he also has a little bit of credibility to his name, which, not to knock Brady North necessarily, but I think Ozzie Timmons is a bigger voice and brings more merit than Brady North, who I think just played college ball and a little bit of indie ball. So
Ozzie's been there, done that.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's just a little bit of a difference, kind of, maybe not even like that. Guys are not going to listen to radio. Of course, they're going to listen, but it just comes from a different perspective that they might be more relatable. And Ozzie, by the way, I remember one of my earliest memories of Ozzie Timmons was when I was in Venezuela, because he used to play in Venezuela.
Yes.
He played 5 seasons in Venezuelan Winter League baseball. So I've always been fond of Ozzie Timmons, and I think, for example, that part of his career can speak to the Latin American guys. Like, it can
Huge.
speak, like, I mean, that is huge. And I don't know to the amounts uh, of Spanish that Ozzie might know, but you know what I do remember? And if you're a Rays fan, you might also remember how tight was he with Willie Adames? How
Yeah.
tight was he with Randy Arozarena too? Like,
And Manny Margot.
you can tell these things. So I'm honestly so excited about the return of Ozzie Timmons. I know that he's been with the organization since his departure from Milwaukee, but this time now getting him inside the dugout, I think it's going to be really good for the team. I think it's going to be good for the guys that have known him for a long time. For example, Brandon Lowe, Yandy Diaz, they've been there with him.
Right.
Let's not forget, this is the guy that got Randy Arozarena to get up from the plate in Game 4 of the 2020 World Series. So I'm really happy to have him back. And boy, I mean, it would just be awesome to pick his brain, not only as a ball player, but on the podcast. It would be great to get his take on things.
If somebody's got a line to Ozzie, heck, we could just reach out to the Rays and try to get him on, because he is a wealth of experience and knowledge. And I just think the fact that he's been there, done that in baseball and with the Rays, he knows how the front office works. He knows how the coaching staff works. He knows how the players work and how it's more of a sum of all parts versus, totally star focused. And there was a quote that stood out to me from a couple years back. I think the most impressive thing about Ozzie beyond the baseball is his demeanor. He's a very upbeat guy. His demeanor is consistent every day. I've been around him. That was from Kevin Cash. So I think this is going to be a really good fit. But, as we know, hitting coaches, it's low-hanging fruit, whether you're the main guy or the assistant hitting coach. All the blame and seemingly none of the credit goes to the hitting coach. So let's hope the Rays are in for a good offensive year. But I think that is extremely key, is the fact that he can connect with players from Latin America and, your American-born players as well.
Yeah, I mean, he is American, so of course he can be able to be relatable to that. No, but it's funny how you're saying the hitting coaches always are going to get the negative, but not the positive. It's funny how sometimes in the pitching side of things, we do actually give a lot of credit to Jim Hickey and to Snyder. So it's just funny that's how it operates. But anyway, to close out, Ozzie, great to have you back in the dugout with the Rays, and hopefully that just means a little bit more offensive production from not only the outfield but the whole team itself.
Yeah, and I'll also just add, finally, is his time with the Brewers. I know that it wasn't as long as probably he hoped or expected, but I'm sure he learned lessons, and maybe there's some things that the Brewers do that the Rays could or could not incorporate. I mean, sometimes you need to go somewhere else and see what they do and take some things that they do and avoid some things that they do. So I think that kind of brings another level of experience and background to his coaching profile, that, he hasn't just been with the same organization. He's gone to the other side of the tracks to see how the Brewers do it. And coming back to the Rays, I'm sure there's some good intel there one way or the other. So again, shout out to Ozzie Timmons, and good luck to him this season. Maybe his first approach should be helping Josh Lowe and Chris Morel hit more homers from
there you go.
That's his first assignment or task, if you will. On that note, we hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you later.